still got to use what we have to make money. So,
Biggest question that we get, do you double your rate?
welcome back, everybody. We're just gonna sit down and go over a few things, talk amongst ourselves. And we've had some questions come across to us through different platforms, and thought maybe we could help out a few people and answer some questions. So,
Yeah.
either way.
Biggest question that we get, not only from the internet, but also from our customers and people that are just looking to get into the business is, hey, how do you guys find and figure out your pricing? Because it is such a new type of business, pricing is all over the place. So, and obviously the pricing is different, different areas that you're in, but we can just give you some ideas of how we have come up with our pricing for our business and what we do here in the Thumb of Michigan.
Yeah, so I started by reaching, or not reaching out, but researching, what guys were charging in the drone business, checking on the Facebook groups and things like that. A lot of helpful information in there. But I realized it's spread out across the nation. Different regions charge different rates. So then I got looking into our area, where primarily aerial applicators are fixed wing crop dusters. So, so we started with that. So for our, main source of income, our main heat of the season, corn fungicide, 2 gallon, 3 gallon per acre work. We went very close to, or if not the same price as the fixed wing crop dusters in our area. So pricing from there really fluctuates. So people ask, well, what's your price charge? What are your rates on this and that? We kind of have a set rate for a lot of our 5 gallon per acre work. That includes some herbicides and some high rate fungicides on specialty crops. Like fruits and fruits and vegetables such as pumpkins, strawberries, sunflowers, things like that. So we kind of have a set rate for that as long as those customers meet our minimum acreage. So that brings another thing into the juggling act, I guess. Of how do we set our price points. So some of these jobs are small jobs, small acreage, small parcels, for some of these specialty jobs. So a lot of those we communicate with the customer and say, this is kind of our minimum fee. You're so many miles away. We like to keep it within I would say roughly, within an hour's distance, one way. And whether it's fairly local, within, a few miles of our home point, we're probably going to waive some of those travel fees. But once we get out to 45, to an hour away, we're probably going to tack on some travel fees if they don't have substantial acreage to cover our time. So I don't know what else am I.
Well, I know a big one that we've come across is, what is your bare minimum acreage that you will fly? Like you've gotten a call like, hey, I just have 10 acres of corn fungicide or 10 or 12 acres of corn fungicide. And in the heat of the corn fungicide spraying season, that may not seem like something you will want to do. But when you come to find out that that person who's calling happens to be neighbors to one of your customers and his 10-acre field is right close by,
Right.
you you go and you take that job because his fields are right there along with the rest of the fields that you're already going and spraying for the day.
Right. So we try to accommodate as best we can. And I also communicate that with some of our uh, small acreage customers, that say, hey, this job is a higher rate. It's going to take me more time to get there, more time to mix. Um, please be aware of that. If I'm doing large acreage fields that are close to home, that we can make considerably more money. Uh, but not that we're looking to turn customers away. They just need to understand the amount of money that can be made doing large acreage with our drones compared to the time it takes for travel and setup. And I had a customer call me for 8 acres, roughly 8 acres. He had mentioned of a spot spray for herbicide on some soybeans, and again, he's about an hour away. And I told him, I said, well, 8 acres doesn't meet our minimum, so we're going to have some travel time in there. But I priced it as a flat rate to him, and he was quite surprised by that rate that I gave him. And even then, that was a lower rate than what we charged for 2 acres of pumpkins. So that was, a repeat customer, and I was willing to help him out. And again, he said, well, he weighed his options, between having us come with the drone or taking his tractor and trailer sprayer out there. And he said, well, I guess for that price, I might as well just go do it myself. And what crop I run down, that's still going to be less of a loss than me paying, you for your services to come out. So we kind of came to an agreement, and I did call him back just to make sure that, we were in, a good standing. And then, so, don't undersell yourself by any means.
Right.
He had said that. He said, well, I realize that flying those 8 acres are going to take much less time than the travel time, the setup time, meeting the customer, finding the field, mapping the field if it has to be mapped, mixing the proper amount of chemical. That's another thing, some people don't, understand is, oh, well, we can just, go spray that 8 acres. Well, how much chemical are you going to need for that 8 acres? You don't want to mix too much. You don't want to mix too little. So you're going to have an idea of how much acreage you're going to cover to mix the right amount of chemical, especially if you're not doing that type of work. So during that time, we were doing fungicide. So all of our tanks and drones and everything were set up for fungicide, which was mainly Roundup Ready crops. And this was a Roundup Ready crop. We were going to go do a herbicide. But again, it wasn't just something we could just leave in our tanks and spray out in the next field, So all those things you got to take into consideration. So people always ask me, what's your rate for this? What do you charge for that? And so if it's, larger acreage, a lot of the same thing that we're already in doing for that season, kind of a basic job, we can give them our basic rates. If it's something like that, out of the ordinary, spot spraying, small acreage, specialty crops, high gallons per acre. I don't know, the list goes on and on. The drones they're finding new ways all the time to utilize the drones in this industry. So that's exciting. But it's just kind of meeting with the customers, communicating with them, finding out, what the value is in that service, and making sure you're getting, what your time is worth. So that's
the specialty crops in the beginning was the biggest thing when it came to trial and error, because we didn't know what to charge for things. We were getting anything between a half acre of pumpkins to spray and 52 acres of pumpkins to spray.
Right.
So you kind of had to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to do this? At what point am I going to, charge the pumpkins a per acre rate rather than a flat rate? And also how much it was worth to the customer. You still have to make some sort of money to do the job, and yet at the same time too, you want to have them you want them to keep having you back. And I remember very vividly, one of the customers, we did not know this customer. He called us. We'd never met him before. We'd never heard from him. He had gotten our number, and he called us during the heat of the corn fungicide season, which you already know that is your biggest moneymaker. And so to stop
Right.
what you're doing to go and spray pumpkins, especially for someone you do not know, you don't, they were almost an hour away, and called and said, what would you charge? Well, when we were doing that, we had to make the amount worth our while to stop spraying corn or to squeeze it in an evening in order to go and do that job. And so Rick had come up with a number, and he gave it to him, and he took it, and we've continued to spray for him ever since. And it's still a good paying job, and he apparently makes money off the pumpkins, because I can't imagine he'd have us come and spray it if he didn't. But during that time, we would still be making more money doing corn fungicide, but it's still worth it because the pumpkin situation and the small specialty crops continue in your off seasons, which is nice, to continue to have income coming in.
It's repetitive work.
It's repetitive work.
So yeah.
But that was the one time I remember where we had to give him a number, and the number had to be worth our while in order to take that job, because it was so busy.
Right.
So we gave him a number, and he took it, and I think it was for 4 acres of pumpkins or something.
Yeah, 4 acres of pumpkins.
Yeah, 4 acres of pumpkins, and it was not quite an hour away. And he continued to have us spray last season, and he had us back this season too, and we charged him the same rate, and he's been happy. So yeah, those are the things that you got to try to get figured out, and that was where it was trial and error, because there were some pumpkins that we sprayed and we didn't make any money doing it.
Right. Right.
And then there were other where they were very, very happy, and they continue to have us come back. So you just got to get those numbers figured out, and there's no one size fits all. You can't.
That's for sure.
No one can say, oh, just charge this for corn fungicide, or just charge this for, specialty crops, because they're all different, and they're all different acreages, and there's all different things that go into play, such as your chemicals, how much you're mixing. Another big one too is you're getting a call. Someone says, well, I have 100 acres of wheat they want you to spray. Well, the first thing I say is you find out how many different fields is that 100 acres in, because you might imagine that it's only one large field. Come to find out, it's in 9 different fields. Well,
takes us all day to do 100 acres of wheat. So
yeah, that was a learning experience back in the beginning when we got that call, took that job, and best learning experience you'll ever do.
According to the salesman, the drone should be able to do that in 2 hours, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, so a lot of different things come into play.
2 hours of flight time, maybe.
Yeah. So in that particular case, we have been back to spray for that customer, and we're very grateful for all of our customers. But in that particular case, we did tack on moving fees.
Right.
And they were fine with that. They were with us the whole day that we sprayed. And I remember myself asking the customer, is this the last field? And what he considered a field and what we actually had to move to was different things. One particular location, even though he called it one field, because we had to move around with trees and driveways, and it was it's an awful area. It was more like 4 fields, but he didn't see it that way, and we figured it out. We got the day finished up, and we go back still, but those are the things you're going to learn along the way. And they were fine with all the moving that we did. They understood, and were fine with us tacking on the moving fees, which I don't remember the exact dollar amount. Those are things you kind of get figured out along the way. Again, it's not a one fits all. So
right.
You can't just give you a number and say, yeah, this will work for you. It's kind of going to be a trial and error thing. So, but once you get your base price, okay, so we're talking about 2 gallons an acre corn fungicide. Once you have your base price for that, now someone says, I want you to spray 5 gallons an acre. From that base price, approximately how much money do you go up per acre?
Well, from my base price, this season we're $3 more per acre for 5 gallon an acre work.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense when you're essentially doubling your rate. But to the farmers, that's a big deal because you can't say, I'm going to double my 2-gallon an acre rate
Right.
because I'm spraying twice as much chemical. Well, it doesn't work out that way. Yes, it is slower and it is not as lucrative. You can't cover as many acres per hour. But then again, you're still not moving,
Right.
extra moves.
You're not remapping.
You're not remapping,
Hmm.
So to me, a lot of those 5-gallon an acre jobs are going to help fill those holes. This is what I tell everybody. If my drones aren't flying, they're not making me money. So am I going to just let them sit until that 2-gallon an acre work comes? No. We've got to take the jobs where they are. And so it's exciting to see the drones get bigger and more efficient. So that's going to help. We're excited about that. But we still got to use what we have to make money. So, whether it's spraying herbicide on a field for a customer where it's too wet, he can't get out there, that's a big selling point for the drones. But you can't price yourself out of the market where they're going to say, oh, forget the drone. He just wants crazy money. I might as well just go out there and rut it up and get it done, and I'll be money ahead. So you still want to get those jobs, and so depending on the acreage, that extra $3 per acre can be considerably more. So more money in the pocket if you're talking larger acreage. So and having a couple seasons under our belt, we've learned ways to speed things up.
Hmm.
And so now for us, at first we were scared of 5 gallons per acre. Now we've learned our settings and our mixing, our setup, our efficiency to be able to speed things up, and mapping, setups. As we get going, we learn all these things that help speed the process. So
Right.
so that 5 gallon per acre, it slows the drone down and you're actually doing a better job. You're getting better coverage.
Hmm.
Um, and, so we don't shy away from it. We just make sure the customers are aware. Now, there are jobs that um, we're doing 10 gallons per acre. Those are
A
not
little
our
more
favorites.
strenuous.
Yes, yes, time consuming. Obviously there is a considerable upcharge for those, and yet when the situation calls for it, the customers are still willing and happy to pay for that expensive service of using drones at 10 gallons per acre. And
Do you double your rate?
I still don't double the
No.
rate. No,
No.
no. Even from
No.
our 2-gallon an acre to double the rate for 10 gallons,
Hmm.
no,
It
those
doesn't.
prices would be astronomical where people would look at us
Right.
dumbfounded and say, why would you think I would pay that much? We also got to consider, all of the other farmers' expenses. We have to, you
Right.
know, take that into consideration, how much they're already invested
Right.
into their crop, per acre, with all of their other inputs, fertilizer, seed,
Hmm.
chemical. You want them to call your local drone guy and say, hey, I've got a job for you. You
Right.
know, I really need your services
Hmm.
and I want to be able to use you. So you've got to take that into consideration.
Right.
And like I said, our first season was a learning curve, and we spoke with our customer and said, hey, this is kind of our starting point. This job is this. It's 5 gallons. It's 10 gallons. This is what we're looking at. So a lot of them were understanding, and sometimes their numbers they were thinking were higher than the rates we were charging. So then, obviously, for the next job, we raised our rate a little bit. Sometimes the price we had was maybe a little too high, so we brought it down. Um, so
Trial and error.
trial and error,
Yeah.
yes. Um, so that's part of the learning curve that comes with this. So
Right.
and like Heidi had said, there's no one size fits all approach
Right.
because pricing in every market, every region is different. So
Right.
um,
When I was at the drone conference, I forget the guy's name, but we spoke with him and he was down in Alabama. And I said, you know, wow, it must be really nice for you guys that you can spray all year round because of their seasons. And he said, well, not really. And I said, well, don't you make, probably twice as much as we make? And he's like, well, we charge such and such amount of dollars, which was quite a bit less than we charge, but at the same time too, they have a year round
Right.
spraying season, and where ours is just really just 6 months. And I thought, okay, I see why our pricing's a little higher, and then someone down in the south is going to have a completely different per acre charge than we are. And so and it could really even be different in Michigan. I don't know. I mean, we know what we charge and what our fellow pilots in our area charge per acre for corn fungicide, but um, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how far out it goes when the price changes.
Yeah, I don't know that a
You
lot. I
know,
know that probably the western side of the state probably uses considerably more, or are in use considerably more crop dusters on a regular basis for more uh, specialty crops, such as potatoes and things like that. Again, where there's a lot of larger acres of repetitive work. So this area, we do have a uh, diverse crops. There we go, diverse crops.
right.
But for the most part, a lot of our large acreage farms, have their own self-propelled sprayers, and everything is planted, as in row crops. So they travel down through the rows. So,
Hmm.
which makes sense. They do a good job. They can cover large acres quickly, and but we do have a small section to the south of us that they grow a lot of vegetable crops, onions, carrots. Um, I mean, the list goes on and on, all sorts of vegetables. And there is one particular crop duster in that area that is a very high percentage of his income, and his steady work is servicing those, few large farms in that area that grow those vegetables. So,
Hmm.
um, and we were able to snag a little bit of that work this year, and we were very excited for that, because that's only about a 25-minute drive for us, and we're able to do some fields that the crop duster can't get into. So, um, we're excited for that, and hoping that the customer's happy. We got where we were doing a good job for them, and again, implementing a learning curve for us, because it's products I'm not familiar with, coming up from a regular row crop farm. So a lot to learn there, and we want to do a good job. We want to make sure that we're having happy customers, that we're doing a good job. We don't want to just be giving drone applicators a bad name in this industry. So I guess that brings up another point, of again, all this talk about how many acres per hour, how many acres per hour. It's not so much about acres per hour in speed. It's about efficacy and efficiency. The more efficient you are, the more acres you're going to get over, but the more uh, effective and the better job you do, the more work you're going to get, just by word of mouth from the customers, the farmers talking amongst themselves and seeing the work we do. So, so that's important to us.
Hmm.
So I'll mention a few things. We've received a lot of compliments on our trailer. Obviously, we went. It was custom built by a friend, a neighbor of ours who's a farmer, and that was a huge improvement for us this year.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can pick that up, but we've got a plane flying overhead. So, um, but so that was a huge improvement for us. That really, really improved our efficiency, uh, our time spent moving, setup time. Really, really lowered that and made our life easier. You
Mhm.
know, as far as loading the drones, unloading the drones, we were manually
Mhm.
handling the drones.
Mhm.
And these are primarily T40s, so they're not all that heavy, but it is work.
Right. It still
So,
usually takes two people to handle them
right,
as
yeah,
much as you're
safely,
handling
you
them.
know, yeah, as often as you're moving them and as expensive as equipment they are, you know, you break one spray nozzle off, it's not flying, and that's affecting your acreage. So, you know,
Mhm.
two people are going to be better for the equipment. They're going to be better for the person. You know, as far as your body goes, you know,
Right.
lifting those, there's not, you know, really, you know, there's a lot of techniques to it, but again, you know, we'd blow your back out loading your drone. That's not a good situation.
Mm-mm.
So.
No.
Um, So they did find that as a huge bonus for us, just landing them on the top flight deck, folding them up, strapping them down, making sure they're secure, and going to the next field.
Mhm.
Unstrapping them, unfolding them, you know, loading the settings and hitting go is, you know, a huge bonus for us. A lot of other things, you know, but we could go on and on about that.
Right.
You know, let us know in the comments. You want to hear more about, you know, the spray trailer? We can go over that.
Mhm. I've seen a lot of trailers.
A lot of
We
trailers,
like
you
to
know, a
look at
lot of
trailers.
trailers, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, it just, you know, that brings up another aspect, you know, how much money did we invest to get started, you know? So,
Right.
you know, we started out on a low budget mindset, and we were glad we did because we knew we wanted to make changes. We used, you know, the truck that we had, a trailer that we had. So essentially, the drone equipment and the tank equipment was an investment for us.
Mhm.
Again, we didn't buy, you know, expensive tanks. You know, we used uh, good, clean, used IBC totes. You know, saved us money there.
Mhm.
Um, we still use those. We just went with a larger capacity, and we're happy with that. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, you can spend all the money in the world and take out loans and buy huge trailers and realize, oh, that this isn't what I want. This doesn't work in my area, you know. So that was
Yeah.
that was a good decision on our part to you know keep it small scale the first year, learn the business, learn how we wanted to operate, and where we could improve and implement that into our second year.
Right.
So
Right.
um,
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my suggestion for anyone who wants to get into it, which I kind of mentioned in my, start your own drone spraying business video. But it really was. It hasn't changed from then to now that I still suggest using what you have at home if you're just starting out. And the reason for that is because you haven't done it yet. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know if it's something you're going to want to stick with, or, a lot of times too, I've seen lots of people update or change their trailers in different ways because once they've had their first spray season, now they want to change things around. And so you don't want to go all full blown all your money into the trailer and then find out, well, this isn't working for me. So and of course you don't want to count your chickens before you hatch. Somebody tell you that you're going to be spraying 2,000 acres
right,
in a day, and you're going to do that 7 days a week for 8 weeks straight, and then it's just not going to work out that way. And you just don't want to count your chickens before they hatch and then have a letdown at the end of the season. So plan ahead. you know
yeah,
I still say use what you have at home, what you can. um, it doesn't
I'm
have to be a beautiful trailer in order to do a really good job. The
right,
customer knows that you're doing a good job. They'll tell by what you're doing. Doesn't have anything to do with what your truck looks like or what your trailer looks like or what your logo looks like. They're
that's
going to
true.
know by what you're doing, and how you're doing the job. And the only thing you really can't do at home is build a drone. I mean, that's where your money's going to end up going, is into the drone. So be prepared and plan for that. Everything else get
Yeah,
figured out. Anyone can build a trailer.
yeah.
So put the money where the drone is, and then yeah, yeah,
Do your research, you
yeah,
know.
definitely.
As this business grows, or industry, I should say, as this industry grows, we're seeing more and more dealers. You know, people always ask us, have you opened a dealership? Well, not yet. You know, we like the brand that we fly, but there's a lot of things going on in that world that has kept us out of the dealership with that avenue. So, but there's a lot of other options coming to market, so we're very excited about that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here in the future. So,